the TMZ Behind the Bar podcast with the TMZ lawyers, Jason Beckerman and Derek Kaufman.
Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. We are proud to be sponsored today by ZipRecruiter.com, where employers can post job openings to over 200 job sites, including social media sites like Facebook and Twitter, with one click of the mouse.
Yeah, head on over to ZipRecruiter.com/TMZ and try it for free.
So Derek, the biggest thing that happened, I think, in celebrity news in the last week is the announcement that Rachel Lindsay has been cast as the newest Bachelorette.
It doesn't get bigger than that, Jason. The Bachelor.
It's remarkable for two reasons, right? I mean, obviously, The Bachelor is now in its 34th season.
It's unreal.
Do you
would think 34 years, but they have so many cycles of it. It's constantly on.
Do you think we'll be around for 34 seasons?
Oh, TMZ?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
No. What about Behind
lucky.
the Bar?
Behind the Bar, I hope we make it to season 2.
Do you think we'll have a black castmate in that time?
I would hope so. Maybe just a black guest would be great.
So it's remarkable for two reasons. Number one, because the current season 33, or maybe this is season 30, I think it's 34 now, is still on the air.
Yep.
And by announcing that Rachel Lindsay, who is a contestant in the current season, is going to be the Bachelorette for the next season, they've sort of given away the fact that she doesn't win this season. It's all been pre-recorded.
Yeah, that's a bit of a spoiler, but it's okay because they're promoting a huge phenomenon. This is the first person of color who's been a Bachelor or Bachelorette contestant. It has been Lily White until this point. No Asian Americans, nobody.
Yes, and they've actually gotten a lot of heat for that, which we're going to talk about in a second. There's been lawsuits filed against The Bachelor, the franchise. It's Warner Brothers and it's ABC that airs it. There's been lawsuits filed against it. We're going to talk about that in just a minute.
We'll dive in, but full disclosure, Jason and I aren't into The Bachelor.
We're not. I used to watch it in sort of seasons 1 and 2 and 3 when it was an absolute phenomenon, and my interest in it has waned. You've never really had interest. You're a reality show fan, generally.
I know enough Bachelor to know Bob Guinea. I know some of the names because you have to know them for trivia purposes when you go to a bar, but I don't watch the show, and I am befuddled by its phenomenon, by its popularity.
And I will say everything that I know about The Bachelor, I learned from Charlie Cotton in our newsroom, and we figured
you can learn it from one of the two Charlies. We've got one.
We've got one of them here with us today. Charlie Cotton, thank you so much for joining us.
Our very own Aussie is going to tell us what it is. So what is it, Charlie, about The Bachelor that fascinates you? You're a huge fan.
Huge fan. Well, why do you guys watch anything? Why does anyone watch anything?
We didn't ask for a rhetorical question. We asked for your explanation.
Well,
to be entertained, just to answer your question.
Any entertainment, to see drama, to see love. It has all of those big human themes in a real show. Why would I watch a scripted show about, this guy's dating that girl, they're going to sleep together, when I can watch the real thing?
Does it feel authentic to you? Because I want to, do you think they are posing for the camera? They're doing absurd things because they're plying them with alcohol? Or you feel like you're watching a real sociological experiment about love?
A bit of both. I mean, I'm sure a lot of girls go on the show, and guys, in the Bachelorette season. I'm sure a lot of people go on it to be famous, to get drunk, to have fun, sure. But I mean, these girls aren't faking those tears when they get sent off the show. They're not. They're not bawling in the car going, I thought he loved me, because they're faking it. They're not good actresses. And if they were good enough actresses, they'd be actresses. You know what I mean?
Point.
They're real, and you're seeing them break down, and it's good to watch.
So Rachel Lindsay's arrival as the Bachelorette has been sort of lauded as this watershed moment in television. Are you excited about this? Does this not make a difference to you? What do you think?
And be careful how you answer.
Yeah.
Right.
Are you a racist in any way, shape, or form?
No, firstly. And secondly, to be honest, I think it's great that, a black woman is becoming the new Bachelorette, long overdue. I don't know if I'm that attracted to her personality to be that one person that everyone's fighting for. She's a very lovely person.
Mm-hmm.
I might even date her myself. But
do you feel like we're giving him enough rope to hang himself with this?
I might even date her myself.
You might even deign to take her out.
I'm just
good for her. Rachel, you got a date waiting for you. He's somewhat smelly.
If things don't work out with your Prince Charming on the show, we have this guy.
If your huge access to fame doesn't pan out, you can always
we have
come
a dirty
back to
Australian
Charlie.
waiting to date you.
I'd be a pretty good consolation prize, I'd say. I just don't think she's got the killer instinct, maybe.
Is she no Corinne? Is it really that you think Corinne is the star?
Corinne is by far the biggest star of the last few years, maybe, to come out of The Bachelor or The Bachelorette. But in that same token, I don't think Corinne would make a very good Bachelorette either. She's too divisive. She's there for the drama. I don't think she's there to fall in love. And you need the person to fall in love. So you need a bit of both, like drama, but also love. Some of the guys they sometimes pick are boring as well.
It looks like his audition tape to be the next
Have they
Bachelor.
ever had an Aussie Bachelor or Bachelorette?
Have
That's
there
my
been
question.
Aussies? Do you know?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Oh. Do you think he'd have to shower on a regular basis in order
I
to do
think
it?
you need to bathe in a few less holes in your jeans. Let me ask one more question.
Yeah.
Are you excited about seeing diversity in the show? Like, is that something that you've been pining for? Does it seem too contrary to reality to have just a house full of white people?
Yeah, I don't like seeing a house full of white people, of course. But when you bring race as a theme to the show, that's what the show becomes. For instance, in the Rachel, when Nick, the current Bachelor, went to Rachel's hometown to meet her parents because she was in the final four, her whole bit was about race. The whole thing about Rachel in that 15 minutes of the episode was, you're going to be an interracial couple if you get together. Is that going to work? People are going to talk, la la la. And I'm like, let's get over this race thing and let's make it all about like, are you guys going to bang next week?
Right,
like,
right.
I like those themes, those like stupid, like, you know, crazy sort of themes rather than it's all about race. And I'm worried that making her the Bachelorette now, the whole season's going to be like, how many brothers are going to be in the
See, I think
cast?
that's
How many this is
fascinating.
I think
gonna
that's fascinating
because
also.
Charlie is younger than us,
Yeah.
not much, but he's post-racial. You know,
Yeah.
Charlie's a millennial. He says race is not even an issue. Why are we discussing and bogging it down? Let's get to the fun stuff. And I actually like that perspective because if the show gets bogged down in race issues, it'll seem
Americans
old.
are so hung up on race, so I think it's unavoidable. This will be like every episode will have some element of race in it. You know, there's going to be black
Definitely.
housemates and white housemates. How's that going to play? How the producer's going to trump that up? You know, it's going to be something.
And of the contestants they pick, how many are going to be white, how many are going to be black, how many are going to be, you know, Asian or whatever.
Right.
And of those, there's definitely going to be more black contestants, right? There's got to be. And of those black contestants, are there going to be some which may be stereotypical or like what sort of range? It's going to be all about race the whole season.
This is refreshing.
This season with Rachel being, turn off your phone, please. We're shooting a podcast. We're trying to be professional here. We're trying to be professional.
Trying to do a show
Trying to do a show here professionally.
I was hoping for about 4 minutes. He's like 9 minutes now. Can we?
This is great. We got to wrap.
we
No,
gotta
this
wrap.
has been really great, though. This is.
Thank you, Charlie,
thanks
for
for
joining
sharing
us.
your thoughts.
Really
Pleasure,
appreciate
guys.
it.
No
Thank
worries at all.
So, Derek, in the 34 seasons that The Bachelor and Bachelorette have been on television, they've taken a huge amount of flack for their complete whiteout.
Yeah,
and
I
it actually
mean-
resulted in a lawsuit. We mentioned it earlier.
It did. So a group of Nashville residents, Nathaniel Claybrooks and Christopher Johnson, they actually sued The Bachelor.
Right.
They sued the show, and they said The Bachelor and Bachelorette failed to feature enough non-white cast members, and civil rights law plainly prohibits whites from refusing to contract with African Americans because of their race. That's what their allegation
and
was.
they had applied to actually be The Bachelor.
That's right.
They're both black dudes. They both applied to be The Bachelor.
They said, we're good looking enough.
We're good looking enough.
Yeah.
We meet all the criteria, but you hired a white person, and it's a continuation of the practice of discriminating against blacks in favor of white people in casting. And the court said discrimination's bad. You can't do that, right?
Unfortunately, no. So
Oh,
the
okay.
court, not unfortunately. So the court actually slapped this down. This is a fairly easy case. The judge had a great decision where he said, look, casting decisions are a necessary component of any entertainment show's creative content. And he goes on to say, regulating the casting process necessarily regulates the end product. So casting and the resulting work of entertainment are inseparable, and they must both be protected to ensure that the producer's freedom of speech is not abridged. So this is a freedom of speech issue. This is First Amendment stuff. Jason, you and I know that's the supreme law of the land. Discrimination laws,
So everything
they
is
give
subject to the First Amendment, and it makes a lot of sense here. I mean, what the court's saying is, look, there are anti-discrimination laws; those are laudable. We all agree that anti-discrimination laws are a very important function in this serve a very important function in this country. But nevertheless, when you are casting for a television show, when you are putting people out there who are going to be the face of the show, you can cast whomever you want, and it has to be that way, right?
it really does. I mean, think about this from other shows that you've seen. So this is a reality show, but think of a scripted show, Fresh Off the Boat. Think of Blackish. Think if they had to give every white actor, Ashton Kutcher comes into the room and says, I should get the role that Anthony Anderson has. I'm just as good of an actor.
Right.
Preposterous. This is what they're trying to express as their creative show, and the whole premise of the show would be undermined. Of course it can't work that way, right?
Right, exactly. And although that's not the premise of The Bachelor, it's a white person, that's the audience they want to get. And we do not challenge that. You have a First Amendment right to put whatever product you want. And think about it, it's got to be that way, right?
Right.
The KKK puts out a promotional video. The KKK is as disgusting as they are. They have every bit of First Amendment rights that anybody else does. They want to put a promotional video out there to show their organization. They don't have to cast a black person or consider a black person for the role in that promotional video.
Or a Jew.
Scientology doesn't have to have other religions, although religion is an absolutely protected category. You can't discriminate otherwise on the basis of religion. You don't have to have a Jew in the Scientology video just to be just to avoid a claim of discrimination. You can cast just Scientologists and say Jews need
Christians,
Protestants
blacks need not
apply. We are just going to. You can say that. You can discriminate within the First Amendment. But Derek, it's not just who appears on screen that's protected. It's also the conduct that impacts the creative process, even though it happens behind closed doors with just the employees.
Right. This is the famous Friends case, right? So back in the 90s, the heyday of Friends, the writer's room was a free and liberal, expressive grounds, right? Everyone was throwing out some offensive things, and some people in the writer's room were getting offended by what was being said to create the content.
One
that they
woman
made.
in particular, an African-American woman, had sued the organization, saying that she was forced to endure a harassing environment because people were throwing out the N-word, people were making racist comments or racially charged comments, and she felt harassed. She complained. Nothing was done about it, and the Friends people said, hey, this is all part of the creative process protected by the First Amendment, and the courts agreed.
They absolutely agreed. They said, look, no dice. This is free speech. This is a First Amendment issue once again, because in order to create the content that they wanted out on the actual show, they needed to have a freewheeling environment where everyone could say basically anything.
Yeah, that's right. And actually a brand new decision just came out a couple of weeks ago involving Marlon Wayans, a great comedian and a person who had worked on the set of, what is it, Haunted House? Was that his movie?
Yeah, that was his movie.
Yeah, the Haunted House set said that he was subjected to Marlon Wayans' consistent use of the N-word. He felt that this guy felt harassed by the racially charged nature of the writer's room and his treatment by Marlon Wayans, especially in a racially derogatory way. He claimed that Marlon Wayans treated him this way. Marlon Wayans obviously black, but the guy said that he uses the N-word all the time, and that really made me feel uncomfortable, and I'm suing. And
seems like the Friends case is going to kick into gear there as well.
The court said so. It was just the case was kicked out by the trial court level. It went up to the Court of Appeal in California. The Court of Appeal upheld the trial court's decision, dismissing the lawsuit, and they said, look, it's part of the creative process. And that creative process on that show was to have a racially charged atmosphere. The movie itself has a lot of racial components to it. I think it revolves around sort of these kind of racial barbs. And sorry, we understand that you felt harassed, and typically that would be something that you couldn't do. But given that it's an expressive environment, it's an environment creating a First Amendment protected device, meaning a movie, we're going to uphold their right to do whatever they want.
Well, that's a great point. So you got to remember that this is in service of the creative process. So if you have an accounting firm and you're just freewheeling and making racially charged remarks, someone can certainly bring a hostile work environment claim there, because what you're doing there is accounting, and it doesn't go towards the creative process in any way, so free speech is not implicated, and there we draw the line.
But you're drawing an interesting issue, which is there are accounting services on movies, and we here at TMZ have an accounting department, and do these laws that protect against discrimination in those contexts, do they apply on a movie set or on a television set? We're going to talk about that.
What about when your whole environment is nearly a creative cooking ground?
We're going to talk about that in just a minute, but first, we're going to let you know a little bit about our sponsor, ZipRecruiter.com. Are you hiring? Do you know where to post jobs to find the best candidates? Posting jobs in one place isn't enough to find quality candidates. If you want to find the perfect hire, you need to post your job to all the top job sites, and now you can. With ZipRecruiter.com, you can post your job to 200 plus job sites, including social media networks like Facebook and Twitter, all with a single click of the mouse.
Yeah, guys, you can find candidates in any city or industry nationwide. Just post once and watch your qualified candidates roll into ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use interface. No more juggling emails and calls to your office. You just quickly screen the candidates, rate them, and hire the right person fast. So find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by Fortune 100 companies and thousands of small and medium-sized businesses around the world. And right now, our listeners can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free by going to ZipRecruiter.com/TMZ. Once again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/TMZ.
One more time, Derek. Try it for free today. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/TMZ.
Check it out.
So, Derek, returning to this idea of the hiring individuals who are serving a non-sort of open to the public, face to the public, kind of forward-facing job, and also people who aren't involved in the creative process necessarily, or whose race doesn't necessarily does not impact the creative process.
Yeah, these start to get to blurry issues, though, right?
Right.
Because what does it mean to be forward-facing? Just on-camera presence? An on-camera presence is clearly sent to the world, but there's trickier issues.
So there was a recent case that actually came out the other way, which it actually did allow the lawsuit to go forward. It's somebody who worked for CNN, what the court described as a behind-the-scenes producer at CNN, came out and said, I was let go from my job based on my race. Now, certainly there's been no factual finding that this was a firing because of the man's job.
Right.
The man was fired, and I believe that he was African American.
Yeah, this was just this was the allegation, and the case is allowed to proceed, but no findings on the merits have been found.
That's exactly right. So the federal district judge said this was not a person in the public eye, and thus CNN's conduct were not in the public interest in the same way that they are. They're not First Amendment protected in the same way that they are when you're talking about somebody who's acting on stage or somebody in the writer's room who's trying to make content. This is just somebody who's a behind-the-scenes producer, and it really is irrelevant what race or religion they are. Instead, these people are now, the court said, protected. And I know there's a lot. This is a recent case, and I think there's going to be a lot that's going to be said about this. My guess is the California Supreme Court is going to have to take a crack at this, and because there seems to be a split here exactly who's protected and what's not.
Yeah, and the judge here is really seizing on that part of the creative process idea, and it's hard for me, with all due respect to the judge who obviously thought about this for a long time. Even a behind-the-scenes producer, to me, seems akin to a writer who is, in the Friends case, who is contributing to the creative process in some way.
I don't want to mix up our apples and oranges here, because in the Friends case, what they're talking about are comments made behind the scenes. And can somebody allege that they're subject to harassment based on the comments?
These are hiring and firing
These
decisions.
are hiring based on the person's race. And I think what the court is saying here is the only way that hiring and firing based on the person's race is at all protectable is when it's going to be somebody who is seen by the public. Now, regardless of race, what the Friends Court and others have said is once you're behind the scenes, you're allowed to say whatever you want that leads to the creative process. And there may be some wiggle room there. We'll have to see other cases come forward that talks about what's part of the creative process. If you're just having an offhanded comment about what's for lunch and you make a racist comment, that's probably not going to be protected. But again, this person's saying, look, you can't discriminate on me. I'm a behind-the-scenes guy. Nobody knows who I am. I'm not putting a product forward, and it's not like your product, for example, the KKK video, relates in any way to what race I am.
It is different, but I'm not sure that it's a very meaningful distinction.
Yeah.
Hiring and firing decisions are one thing, and you're right, a sort of hostile work environment claim is different. But here, even if you're a behind-the-scenes producer, I would challenge that. Hello? What's going on?
All right, folks. Derek has now returned. He had to run out to the newsroom floor and
out of breath. I'm woefully out of shape. But I'm back.
So we wanted to return really quickly to the Wilson decision by the California Court of Appeal. And I think what's really interesting, sort of sums this entire thing up, ties it up nicely, is the court drew a distinction between the case in front of it and another case involving a plaintiff by the name of Hunter. The court said the plaintiff in the CNN case, his utility in the broadcast, his role in shaping the news that CNN broadcast was hidden from public view, unlike a local television weather news anchor role that was sought by the plaintiff in Hunter. Mm-hmm. There, you're allowed to discriminate because the person was going to be a news anchor, and you can present whomever you want to the public in order to express your artistic views. In this case, weather is artistic. It's on television. And that's very, very different than the Wilson plaintiff, who was simply a behind-the-scenes guy, was not forward-facing. That's the distinction we're drawing.
That is the distinction, and it's interesting to me how this will be handled on appeal, because there's a little bit of tension there. I'm not sure that the behind-the-scenes nature of his role matters all that much to me, because his life is informed by certain experiences, and he has a certain vantage point. And what if they want a type of person who has a particular vantage point?
Absolutely right. What if they want to do something from the pro-KKK perspective? Don't they have a right to have somebody who thinks like
feels
a KKK
that in their fiber?
member?
Yes.
I mean, that's certainly not the case with this Wilson guy.
Right.
But why is that wrong? If they want to have, how about this? If they want to have a guy doing the African American beat and writing for the African American television show within the CNN network, don't they have a right to hire just a black person for that role and discriminate against the white person?
It seems to me, I'm fascinated by how this will shake out, because surely you could get maybe, for lack of a better, to your example, Eminem could kind of embody that ethos and do it as a white person, but why do they need to do that? Why do they need to find Eminem? Why, if there's a host of candidates who have lived and breathed that experience that are black candidates, just because they're behind the scenes, they want to present that to the world.
They're doing a special on Southeast Asia, but they need a writer for the back or an editor who's going to put it together. They want, even though they're obviously to get somebody who's lived there is different, but why not have a Southeast Asian who understands from historical context, the historical context of that better? I think you're right.
Yeah.
Although I do think it's slippery. I think it's a way for producers who have an animus towards a racial group to sort of tuck everything within this exception, which is, hey, I don't want the black dude on it because you know what? I want a bright white perspective on my show.
This is exactly right, because where would it end, Jason? What if I ran an accounting firm and I was like, you know what? I really want white accounting.
Yeah.
I don't want diverse accounting. I think white accountants are what I want to present to the world.
Right.
That would certainly yield to discrimination laws. You couldn't do that because the task of accounting is purely non-racial, and you should have to hire.
But of course, if you just want a white accountant in your commercials, that would be okay.
That's
exactly
right.
That's a First Amendment protected thing. You're trying to attract customers a little bit different.
It's a thorny issue, Jason.
It is, and we are going to update this because the California Supreme Court, as we mentioned earlier, is almost sure to take this up. You have a split of decisions now. You have this CNN case on the one hand. You have the Hunter case that we referenced. You have the Bachelor case. It's
time to bring in the big boys.
Time to bring in the big boys
and girls.
And the impact of the California Supreme Court is they would put it to rest. A single decision will put it to rest. Although in this situation we have a First Amendment, you could conceivably appeal that to the United States Supreme Court. They would hear this case.
That's right. There's maybe a federal question involved, so you could get the big supreme law of the land to weigh in.
Yeah. Just to bore you guys for a second, the states have ultimate authority over their own laws, but here what we're doing is interpreting the First Amendment, which is obviously a federal law, and therefore the big dogs, the U.S. Supreme Court, has the right to trump the California State Supreme Court. If the California State Supreme Court was simply interpreting California constitutional issues,
they're the last word.
The U.S. Supreme Court would have no jurisdiction to step in and potentially overturn that.
But will the California Supreme Court see this one? Have they granted cert? Because ultimately, the California Supreme Court doesn't have to listen to every single case, but often they'll want to resolve a circuit split like this.
So right now, these two cases, both CNN and Hunter, I believe, is it Hunter?
Hunter was the other case you discussed.
One of the other cases, they have applied for, they've filed what's called a petition of certiorari. They've applied to the Supreme Court, the losers of those cases, to say we want the Supreme Court to overturn what has happened before. The Supreme Court does not take either the California or U.S. Supreme Court. They have discretion on what cases they hear. They have not exercised that discretion yet, but it's currently pending before them.
It'll be interesting to see.
So I think I hear a little mail time.
Let's get to something lighter than race discrimination.
But Parker is suffering from what he calls technical difficulties. Okay. I think they're more emotional difficulties that Parker is suffering from.
So we'll do it live,
so
Jason.
He handed us a piece of paper, which I have not seen before. All right. Subject matter is whoops. Oh, I heard.
Well, that's not a good
coming.
start.
I heard about this coming. This is going to be bad for me, isn't it?
I don't know what it is, but I'm now curious. You piqued my interest. Go ahead.
You recently talked, this is from, Taysha, Taysha. You recently talked about Kim Kardashian being chastised for her hawking a morning after pill when she was pregnant. It was actually a morning sickness pill. Big difference. So
I just want to be clear, Taysha. When you say you mean Jason.
Yeah.
Jason expressed
it's
that
so
it was
a
morning after pill, and I expressed somewhat befuddled.
You did.
I didn't understand why she would do such a thing.
I have to completely fall on the sword for this one. I think it was last week we were talking about celebrities who sponsor certain products, and I had made a reference to Kim Kardashian being chastised by the FDA, the Federal Food and Drug Administration, for putting out an advertisement without sufficient disclaimers, and I had said the advertisement was for a morning after pill.
Now,
when
that
she was
type of
pregnant.
That's would have been very different and more vociferous.
That's
Derek
a much
actually,
more hot button issue
than morning sickness.
During the conversation, I said I said she was a morning after pill while she was pregnant, and Derek said, "Wow, that's an odd product." And I even thought to myself when you said that, I'm like, "Huh, that is an odd
What an odd product to promote while you're pregnant.
While you're pregnant.
And celebrating the majesty of life.
It makes a heck of a lot more sense. Taysha, you're absolutely right. It was not a morning after pill. It was a morning sickness pill, which is perfectly a reasonable thing to pimp when you're pregnant.
I want to send you to like a shame room. I don't even think the mea culpa is enough. I think you need to throw yourself at the mercy of Kim Kardashian. I'm embarrassed by this. It was a morning sickness pill. It's so funny because when I said morning after and you said, "Is that right?" I was like, "Huh,
That can't be right, but I'm pretty sure it is, so I'm going to go with it.
Yeah, but instead you doubled down, and now Tasha's called you out on it. So good job, Tasha.
All right.
I'm glad you were listening closely.
We were supposed to have more mail time, but I can't stomach another one. That was terrible. I got to get out. All right, guys. Thanks very much. Once again, we are proud to be sponsored by ZipRecruiter. One-stop shopping. With one click of the mouse, you can get all of your job postings to all throughout the internet, over 200 different websites, job posting sites, as well as Facebook and Twitter and all the like.
That's
a single click of the mouse.
Exactly right. Head over to ZipRecruiter.com/TMZ and try it for free.
Thanks for watching. If you want more nerdy deep dives into the legal side of celebrity news, hit our subscribe button right here.
And check out our previous episodes over here.